Welcome to the GPLama YouTube channel, and in this video, an unfair comparison between two small form factor GoPro cameras. I call it unfair because there's 6 years separating these two cameras, and the HERO5 Session, which I'll probably call the Session 5 from here on in, is no longer for sale from GoPro. However, my use case for these kind of cameras hasn't changed over the years, so I was keen to put these head to head. Now, my use case, on the front of the bike, I want light and small form factor, I want ease of use, and I want to be able to take video from which I can take still shots from as well. So the quality needs to be good. Now, a few years ago, the Session 5 ticked all of those boxes, but a lot has changed in the last 6 years, and it's a real eye-opener to see these side-by-side shots coming up very, very soon. Now, just quickly, some specifications of these two cameras. The Session 5, released in September 2016, so quite some time ago now. Max resolution of 4K, 30 frames a second. Video stabilisation is available on this, but only at 2.7K at 30 frames a sec. It may also work at 48 frames a sec. Then you can't use the wide resolution. It has USB-C. Yes, 6 years ago, this had USB-C, well ahead of its time. The battery is just over 1,000 milliamp hours, and the weight with the mounting bracket comes in at 88 grams. So this thing was quite capable back in the day. Over to the 11 mini release date, November 2022, not that long ago. Max resolution 5.3K at 60 frames a second, and a ton of resolution and frame rates below that. It has Hypersmooth 5.0, which is just mind-blowing. It has USB-C. It's also compatible with the Max lens if you want to switch those lenses out. Battery around 1,500 milliamp hours with the Enduro battery technology, which I'm told is more reliable in more varied weather conditions. And the weight of this comes in at 132 grams. So quite a bit beefier than the original Session. Now, as a comparison, the Hero 8 Biggie, I will call it, the full version of the Hero 8, comes in at 129 grams. So the new Mini is beefier than the original 8, which is still quite a capable camera in itself. Again, another reference point, the Hero 10 with the Max lens on it, this is the Biggie version, comes in at 179 grams. So yes, this is mini compared to this, but compared to previous generations, still pretty chunky. Quickly touching on the price, and it depends where you are in the world, and if you buy off the shelf or you buy online as a subscriber to the GoPro service. Here in Australia, you're looking at $649, or if you're a subscriber to the GoPro service online, $499 Aussie dollars. The Hero 11 Full, as a comparison, $799 off the shelf here in Australia, or $629, closer to $630 if you're a subscriber. So GoPro's pricing is a little bit weird. Buying online as a subscriber, it's actually cheaper to get the 11 Biggie than it is to get the 11 Mini off the shelf. Anyhow, if you're interested in these cameras, check your local stockist or online as a subscriber. Now, on to what we all want to see, the road test. Now, I've set these cameras to what I call optimal settings for riding bikes and having them mounted under the front bike computer. The Hero Session 5 is set to 2.7K 30, video stabilisation is on, and the lens is set to wide. Mounted right next to it is the 11 Mini, set to 4K 60 frames a second. Hypersmooth is enabled, high bitrate, and wide lens as well. Now, what I've used is a side-by-side dual GoPro mount, which sells for a few dollars online. I'll put links in the video description below if you're keen on doing some similar testing. Let's have a look at the results. So from the outset, it's pretty easy to see which one is which. Session 5 on the left, and the new Hero Mini 11 on the right. Now, what we used to accept as pretty good back in the day has been completely put to pasture and surpassed by the new stabilisation, the colour depth, the resolution, the frame rate, you know, everything on the 11, or the 11 Mini more specifically, puts the old Session 5 to shame. Now, each road that I show you coming up is going to get progressively bumpier. This was a relatively smooth road, and I did stop and check that I had stabilisation on for the Session 5. It was on. It's just really not that good. Okay, now heading north, sun coming in from the side. Slightly bumpier road. You can tell there the Session 5's having a bit of trouble. The 11 Mini, not a problem in the world. Still heading north, and as promised, a little bumpier again. This is some hard-packed clay, which does get a little rough after the rain we've had recently. And there is a creek crossing coming up. Thankfully there's a bridge. But again, the Session really struggling as the bike moves side to side. And the 11 Mini as smooth as butter. Another small creek crossing coming up. Wind at my back and some higher speed testing. Again, the session getting a little blurry. The 11 Mini sailing straight through. Then out of the saddle here, side to side with the bike, you can see the session shaking around a little bit right here. And again, the 11 Mini just shining through. Absolutely unbelievable. All right, coming up next, just a quick sound test with no audio filtering whatsoever between the Session 5 and the 11 Mini. Audio test of these two cameras. On the left, you're hearing me now through the 11 Mini with a 20km/h headwind coming at me. And now you're hearing me on the Hero Session 5. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Oof. Look, I'm not going to lie, they were both very ordinary there with that wind test. The 11 Mini probably coming out a little bit on top, but if you want good quality audio, you're going to have to use an external mic or some pretty beefy filtering. Really not their strong point. Last example I'm showing here on screen, tailwind, sailing in back home through a little town called Miners Rest. And again, even on really, really smooth roads, the 11 Mini still comes out on top by far. On to some issues and observations after riding with this camera for a week or two, and the first one's a big one. This camera freezes up on me. It locks up and becomes unresponsive in just what I call normal use on the front of the bike, trying to record video. Now, doing some research online, this isn't an isolated report of it locking up. Other people are having this problem with the same camera. Now, I have switched micro SD cards. I've made sure they're formatted to exFAT, which seem to help a little bit, but I'm still having issues with this thing locking up. Hopefully this will be fixed soon in firmware, but it's very, very frustrating buying something new and having that problem of unreliability. Secondly, there's no status light visible on the 11 Mini when mounted under the bike computer. The Session has LED lights on the front and back, which flash red when recording, but the Mini has nothing but the underside status screen. To me, this is a huge miss. I'm always looking down to make sure the camera is recording if I'm using another GoPro camera. I'm looking for that red light flashing. On this, I just simply can't tell. And with it locking up, it's even worse. I really can't tell whether it's recording or not. The only way I'm sure this thing is recording is when I press the stop recording button and I get the beep, 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 beep sequence. If I don't, I know it's locked up and I have to stop and reset the thing and go again. Now, it's definitely not a showstopper, but it's just one of those convenience things. Looking down and seeing a red light flashing on the front or the back is very handy. Yes, I could probably get the remote for this to show me the information on screen, but that's going to cost me another $120 or so and add even more weight to the bike. Very much going against the buy the smaller version for the lower weight philosophy. I have seen a lot of commentary online regarding the non-replaceable battery in this. Look, the Session 5 also didn't have a replaceable battery. That's still going pretty well to this day. And if you do want replaceable batteries, if you're recording a lot and need to swap batteries out in the field, then the 11 Biggie is probably more your answer. Next up is this unit does not have GPS inbuilt, so no GPS data is stored when you're recording videos. Now that is a problem if you're using the GoPro software to try and do some overlays. That's not going to be possible for speed, distance, etc. However, if you're using a bike computer and other third-party software, you'll be able to load in that data as you do with your power, heart rate, cadence, etc. and do overlays that way. Garmin Verb Edit was a free software solution back in the day that was absolutely brilliant for doing just this. However, Garmin have pretty much abandoned that. And reports coming in now is that it doesn't work at all. Something I'll have to look into another day. Another thing to note is there's no tether loop on this camera as there was for the Session 5. You could loop this around the top there, have a tether, so if your mount broke off, the camera wouldn't go flying. My solution for that is to use one of the unused tabs on the back as a tether. Not ideal, I would have loved to have seen just a little loop put in there for that specific purpose. Another question I'm sure will pop up is, why did I test the 11 Mini against the HERO5 Session? Shouldn't I have tested the 11 Mini up against the 11 Biggie? I'm sure there's quite a few of those tests out online at the moment, but as I said, it was about comparing the two small form factor cameras. I did, however, compare the 11 Mini to the 10 Biggie, and it really was difficult to split the two. Let's have a close look at those two now, side by side. Okay, out on the Skipton Rail Trail with the Hero 10 on the left, 11 Mini on the right, both with exactly the same settings, 4K, 60 frames, stabilisation on, high bitrate and wide lens. It's almost impossible to pick the two. Bike back. You're right, you're right. Oh, careful. And speaking of things jumping in front of me on this ride, that That was a close one. Now, one thing you can note, if you look really carefully, is the bigger sensor on the 11 mini gives you a bit wider wide angle. So if you look right off into the distance as the road disappears, it looks a little smaller there on the right than it does on the left. So with that larger sensor on the 11 mini and the 11, that wider is just a little bit wider, for the lack of a better term. And one last test of the 10 versus the 11 mini, and I'll stop the video right here to point out a few things. One, I'm just about to hit some really, really rough bumps. Number two, you can see the wider lens on the right. Now, these are both set to wide, but you can see a little more detail and more sky over there on the right compared to the left. And the white cow there looking at me thinking, what the hell am I doing on the bike? That cow is a really, really good stabilisation reference point. I'll play this through twice. Keep an eye on the cow. The cow doesn't move. I do. Check out how good the stabilisation is on both of these cameras. If you're listening really carefully there, I have some extra commentary, but you can hear the bell on the bike ringing. Now, rewinding that back up and playing this through again, that cow is super smooth. So the ability for the GoPro to smooth cows out is really, really good. So look, hyper smooth on version 4 and version 5 is absolutely brilliant. I couldn't split those. You do have a little bit more detail with that wider lens over there on the right, but one for one, side by side, they are really, really hard to pick. Okay, before wrapping this one up, just some final thoughts on this unit and a few observations. There's no question about it. The image quality and stabilisation is absolutely phenomenal. The performance they can get out of these while it's shaking around on the bike is just worlds away from where we've come from just a few years ago. Now, the reliability of this unit is a problem for me, and those no LED lights as well. I'm still getting my head around not knowing whether it's recording or not. Still doesn't quite sit well with me, not knowing exactly what this thing is doing. The missing features on this compared to the 11 Biggie is a bit of a wash for me. I've got a very simple use case for these. Press the button, record video. That's all I really need it to do. But I guess if you were to ask me, would I go this one again or the 11 Biggie? Well, if the Biggie doesn't have the reliability issues early on, I'd go the Biggie over this. It's only a few dollars more, so to speak. But given I've already got the Hero 10 Biggie, and the difference between these two was very, very hard to pick, I'd probably give the 11 a miss. However, if you have one of the older GoPro units, or you need to use one of the extended features or functionalities of the 11 Mini or the Biggie, these are definitely worth checking out. And with that, we'll leave it there. If you found this one informative, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe to support this channel and be alerted of new videos, and thanks for watching.